In the year 1347, a silent killer arrived on Europe's shores. It came aboard merchant ships, hidden within the fur of black rats and the bites of infected fleas. No one knew it then, but the Black Death was about to change the course of history forever. The plague first struck the bustling port cities of Italy, Genoa, Venice, and Messina. Within weeks, the disease spread like wildfire, claiming lives at an unimaginable pace. The streets filled with carts of the dead, and an eerie silence replaced the once thriving marketplaces. Victims developed painful swellings, black buboes on their necks, armpits, and groins. High fever, vomiting, and excruciating pain followed, with death often arriving within days. In some cases, the infected bled from their noses or turned black from internal hemorrhaging. Hence the name, the Black Death. People had no understanding of bacteria or viruses, and medicine failed them. Some believed it was a punishment from God, others blamed foul air or poisoned wells. No cure existed, and as doctors and priests died alongside commoners, panic spread faster than the disease itself. Between 1347 and 1351, the Black Death wiped out an estimated 25 to 50 million people, nearly half of Europe's population. Entire villages vanished, leaving abandoned homes and overgrown fields. Those who survived were left in a world that would never be the same again. In places like London and Paris, bodies piled up faster than they could be buried. Mass graves, known as plague pits, became common as grave diggers succumbed to the disease. The air was thick with the stench of death, and the streets were deserted except for the occasional procession of mourners. With so many dead, cities struggled to function. Law enforcement collapsed, food became scarce, and riots erupted as people fought for survival. Some turned to crime, while others abandoned their families, fearing the plague would claim them next. In desperate times, people looked for someone to blame. Rumors spread that Jewish communities had poisoned wells, leading to horrific massacres across Europe. Thousands of innocent people were burned alive or driven from their homes, victims not of disease, but of fear and ignorance. The Catholic Church, once the pillar of hope, could not stop the plague. Priests either fled or died trying to comfort the sick, shaking people's faith in God. Some turned to extreme religious movements, such as the flagellants, who roamed the streets, whipping themselves in hopes of divine forgiveness. With workers dying in droves, farms were abandoned, and food production plummeted. Lords struggled to find peasants to work their lands, and wages skyrocketed due to the labor shortage. The feudal system, which had defined Europe for centuries, began to unravel. For the first time, common laborers had bargaining power. With fewer workers available, they demanded better wages and working conditions. When lords refused, peasant revolts erupted across England, France, and Italy, forever altering the balance of power. Art and literature took on a darker tone, reflecting the trauma of the Black Death. Paintings depicted death as a skeletal figure, the dance of death theme becoming common. Writers like Boccaccio chronicled the horror in works like the Decameron, preserving first-hand accounts of the plague's devastation. With so many nobles dead and serfs gaining independence, feudalism weakened. The rigid class structure began to collapse as survivors sought new opportunities in cities. The foundations of medieval society had been shaken, making way for new social and economic systems. Though medieval doctors failed to cure the plague, the Black Death led to a shift in medical thinking. Superstition gave way to scientific observation as physicians began studying disease transmission. The devastation forced people to question outdated medical practices, planting the seeds of modern medicine. With feudalism crumbling, many survivors moved to cities for work. Urban populations grew, leading to the rise of merchant classes and early capitalism. A new middle class emerged, challenging the old order and setting the stage for future economic revolutions. Out of the ashes of the Black Death, a new age of innovation was born. The scarcity of skilled workers led to higher wages, giving people time and resources to pursue the arts and sciences. Some historians argue that the Renaissance may not have been possible without the social changes brought by the plague. With so many men dead, women took on new roles in society. They managed businesses, worked as artisans, and even entered professions once reserved for men. Though gender inequality persisted, the Black Death helped push the boundaries of what women could achieve. Though the worst outbreak ended in 1351, the Black Death never truly disappeared. It returned in waves for centuries, with major outbreaks occurring every few decades. The last major European plague epidemic struck in the 17th century, but the disease still exists in isolated regions today. The Black Death forced humanity to rethink how disease spreads. Quarantine measures, improved sanitation, and medical advancements all stemmed from the lessons learned during the medieval pandemic. Today, historians and scientists still study the Black Death to understand how pandemics shape civilizations. The Black Death was not just a tragic event, it was a catalyst for transformation. It shattered old ways of thinking, reshaped economies, and redefined societies. In its wake, Europe emerged into a new era, proving that even in the darkest times, humanity finds a way to rebuild and adapt. Our journey through time comes to an end for today. We embark on new adventures every week. If you relish the experience, please like and subscribe.